The Department of Education is currently implementing the Schools First initiative, an effort to improve basic education outcomes through a broadly participated, popular movement featuring a wide variety of initiatives undertaken by individual schools and communities, as well as networks of schools and localities involving school districts and divisions, local governments, civil society organizations, and other stakeholder groups and associations. Even as the Schools First initiative seeks to improve the way all public schools perform now, the Department of Education is also undertaking fundamental reforms to sustain better performance. DepEd is pursuing a package of policy reforms that as a whole seeks to systematically improve critical regulatory, institutional, structural, financial, cultural, physical, and informational conditions affecting basic education provisions, access, and delivery on the ground. These policy reforms are expected to create critical changes necessary to further accelerate, broaden, deepen, and sustain the improved education effort already being started by the Schools First initiative. This package of policy reform is called the Basic Education Sector Reform Agenda. I am JuanMichael your presenter on BESRA. If you are ready, let's get started. The policy actions comprising the BESRA seek to create a basic education sector that is capable of attaining the country's education for all objectives. In summary, these objectives are: first, universal adult functional literacy. Second, universal school participation and elimination of dropouts and repetition in first 3 grades. Third, universal completion of full cycle of basic education schooling and satisfactory achievement levels by all at every grade or year. Fourth, total community commitment to attain of basic education competencies for all. In order for the basic education sector to achieve the desired educational outcomes for all Filipinos, the BESRA focuses on specific policy actions within 5 key reform thrusts, or KRT, as follows. KRT 1. Get all schools to continuously improve. KRT 2. Enable teachers to further enhance their contribution to learning outcomes. KRT 3. Increase social support to attain of desired learning outcomes. KRT 4. Improve impact on outcomes from complementary early childhood education, alternative learning systems, and private sector participation. KRT 5. Change institutional culture of DepEd to better support these key reform thrusts. In short, the 5 key reform thrusts of BESRA are on schools, teachers, social support to learning, complementary interventions, and DepEd's institutional culture. Key Reform Thrust 1. School-level stakeholders improve their own schools continuously. Why this reform thrust is important? Progress in this key reform thrust will be indicated by: main policy actions identified to generate progress in this key reform thrust. Key Reform Thrust 2. Teachers raise the prevailing standards of their profession to meet demands for better learning outcomes. Why this reform thrust is important? Progress in this key reform thrust will be indicated by: main policy actions identified to generate progress in this key reform thrust. Key Reform Thrust 3. Influential social institutions and key social processes are engaged by DepEd to support national-scale attainment of desired learning outcomes. Why this reform thrust is important? Progress in this key reform thrust will be indicated by main policy actions identified to generate progress in this key reform thrust. Key Reform Thrust 4. Providers of early education care and development, alternative learning services, and private sector increase their respective complementary contributions to national basic education outcomes. Why this reform thrust is important? Progress in this key reform thrust will be indicated by main policy actions identified to generate progress in this key reform thrust. Key Reform Thrust 5. DepEd changes its own institutional culture towards greater responsiveness to the key reform thrust of BESRA. Why this reform thrust is important? Progress in this key reform thrust will be indicated by main policy actions identified to generate progress in this key reform thrust. The conclusion of this presentation. The underlying principle of SBM under BESRA is that the people directly involved and affected by the school's operation are the best persons to plan, manage, and improve the school. So the people involved must work hand in hand to reach the goal to bring out positive change in the form of governance and management of the school to effect improvement in the quality of education for the students. So it is very important to create an environment where all people involved in the process not only agree but also commit to make that change happen. I am JuanMichael your presenter on BESRA. Thank you for watching.